The alarm bell screamed through the corridors of Station 7, cutting through the normal hum of daily operations. Tabin jumped from his chair at the communications console, his coffee spilling across the metal floor. The warning lights bathed everything in red as he quickly worked to trace the source of the incoming signal. "What is it?" Sora rushed over from her research station, her lab coat still covered in alien plant samples. She had been studying peaceful flora from distant worlds just moments before, but now her face showed deep concern. Tabin's fingers flew across the control panel as he tried to clean up the static-filled transmission. "It's coming from the Kairos system, very far out on the rim. The signal is encrypted, but—" He paused, his face growing pale. "It's using emergency protocols that haven't been activated in over 200 years. The main screen flickered to life, showing a grainy image of what looked like a Corrosian officer. The alien's usually bright blue skin had turned a sickly gray color, and his large eyes were wide with terror. Behind him, sparks flew from damaged equipment and other crew members ran back and forth in panic. "This is Commander Veltar of the Kairos Defense Station," the alien's voice cracked through the speakers. "We are sending this message to anyone who can receive it. Our system is under attack by something we have never seen before. They call themselves the Devourers." Sora grabbed Tabin's arm. "Devourers? I've never heard of any species by that name." The recording continued. "They appeared 3 days ago. Metal ships, perfectly geometric, no biological signatures at all. At first we thought they were some kind of automated trading fleet, but then—" The commander's voice broke. "They started taking everything. Not just our resources or our technology. Everything. They stripped planets down to bare rock and consumed the materials to build more ships." Tabin increased the volume as the transmission grew weaker. The commander looked directly into the camera, his fear obvious even across species barriers. "We tried to fight them. Our entire defense fleet opened fire, but their ships repair themselves faster than we can damage them. They don't negotiate. They don't communicate. They just consume." Behind him, another officer shouted something in their native language. The commander nodded grimly. 12 systems have gone dark in the past week. Complete communications blackout. We think they're all gone." The transmission cut to static for a moment before the commander appeared again, but now explosion sounds echoed in the background. "If anyone receives this message, do not come to investigate. Run. Get as far away as possible. These things multiply exponentially. Each world they consume makes them stronger. By the time you receive this, there may be thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands." The screen went black. Emergency text appeared showing the signal had been lost. Sora stared at the blank screen, her mind racing through the implications. "Tabin, we need to contact the Council immediately. If what he said is true." Already on it, Tabin was sending priority alerts to every major government in known space. "But Sora, look at this timestamp. This message was sent 4 days ago. If they were right about the expansion rate..." Sora pulled up star charts on her tablet, calculating distances and travel times. Her stomach dropped. There could be hundreds of systems affected by now. Maybe more. Within an hour, emergency sessions were being called across the galaxy. The Great Council chamber on Centauri Prime filled with representatives from dozens of species, all talking at once in a dozen different languages. The normally calm and dignified proceedings dissolved into chaos as the full scope of the threat became clear. Fleet Admiral Wu Jin of the Tyrellian Navy stood at the central podium, his usually proud military bearing replaced by obvious defeat. "We have confirmed the loss of contact with 17 systems in the past week. Long-range sensors show massive debris fields where inhabited worlds used to be." A representative from the peaceful Delonian species spoke up, his voice shaking. "What are our options? How do we fight something like this?" Wu Jin shook his head. "We don't. Our best military analysts have run every possible scenario. Self-replicating machines that can harvest entire worlds for materials? There is no conventional defense against such a threat. They will always outnumber us, and their technology appears to be far beyond our understanding." Panic rippled through the chamber. Several delegations immediately activated emergency protocols to begin evacuating their border worlds. Others demanded the Council authorize the construction of massive defense stations around core systems, though everyone knew it would be too little, too late. "What about seeking help from the advanced species in the Galactic Core?" someone suggested. "They've already gone silent," Wu Jin replied grimly. "Either they're hiding or they've decided we're not worth saving. The chamber fell into dejected silence. Then slowly a figure stood in the back section reserved for newer council members. The human representative, HFY, walked calmly to the speaking platform despite the shocked stares from every direction. Most species still considered humans to be dangerous primitives from a death world. Earth had only been granted council membership 20 years earlier, and many representatives still questioned whether humans were civilized enough to participate in galactic governance. Their planet was classified as Class 13 Death World, hostile beyond what most species could even imagine surviving. The Human Federation will respond to this distress call, HFY announced clearly. The chamber erupted in confused murmuring. Several aliens laughed, though not from humor. The Tyrellian admiral looked at her as if she had lost her mind. Representative HFY, he said carefully, perhaps you don't understand the scope of this threat. We are talking about an enemy that has consumed dozens of star systems. Even our most advanced military forces are powerless against them. HFY smiled, and several aliens in the front rows instinctively moved back. When humans smiled before a fight, other species had learned to be nervous. Admiral, perhaps you don't understand humans, she replied. You see an impossible threat. We see a problem that needs solving. Earth has faced extinction before. Ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, global plagues. We're still here. This is different, protested a delegate from the Vraxian Empire. This is technology beyond our comprehension. So was fire once, HFY said simply. Then metalworking. Then spaceflight. Humans have a saying, hold my beer and watch this. It usually comes right before we do something everyone else thinks is impossible. She turned to address the full assembly. While you evacuate and hide, humanity will mobilize. We'll study these devourers, learn their weaknesses, and find a way to stop them. Not because we're braver or smarter than you, but because we're too stubborn to know when we're supposed to give up. The chamber fell silent as delegates processed this declaration. Some looked hopeful, others looked horrified. Most looked like they were watching someone volunteer for suicide. HFY gathered her materials and headed for the exit. We'll be in touch, she said over her shoulder. Try not to panic too much while we're gone. As the human representative left, the remaining delegates sat in stunned silence. In the space of 5 minutes, the galaxy's newest and most dangerous member species had volunteered to fight a threat that had made the rest of civilization flee in terror. Admiral Wu Jin stared at the door where HFY had exited. Are they insane? He muttered. Sora, who had been monitoring the session from Station 7, pulled up Earth's classification files on her screen. Class 13 Death World, hostile environment, extreme weather, dangerous predators, toxic atmosphere in some regions, frequent natural disasters. No, she said quietly to herself, they're just human. The message reached Earth's orbital command stations within hours of HFY's declaration at the Council. Fleet Commander Do Hyun stood on the bridge of the flagship Indomitable, reading the threat assessment reports that made most alien military leaders surrender before firing a single shot. Self-replicating machines that harvest entire worlds, he said aloud, reviewing the data. Exponential growth rate. Technology beyond current understanding. He paused and looked up at his bridge crew. Sounds like Tuesday. His crew chuckled. They had all been born on Earth or raised in Earth's military tradition. Where other species saw hopeless odds, humans saw an engineering problem with violent complications. Chief Communications Officer Jun Ho looked up from his station. Sir, we're receiving mobilization orders from Earth Command. They want every available ship ready for deployment within 72 hours. Every available ship? Do Hyun raised an eyebrow. What's the fleet count? Military vessels, 347. But sir, Jun-ho hesitated. The mobilization includes civilian ships, cargo haulers, mining platforms, research vessels, even private spacecraft. Anyone willing to volunteer? Do-hyun nodded. This was typical human thinking. When facing extinction, everyone contributed. How many total? Over 2,000 ships, sir, and the number keeps growing. Down in the engineering sections, Young-soo supervised the loading of equipment that would have confused most alien observers. While other species focused on bigger guns and stronger shields, humans brought tools designed by a species that had learned to survive in impossible conditions. Careful with those adaptive AI cores, he called out to the loading crew. Those systems learned to function in Earth's chaotic ecosystems. They can adapt to changing conditions faster than most organic brains. The AI systems were based on software that had originally been designed to predict Earth's weather patterns, a task so complex that it had required artificial intelligence capable of handling millions of variables simultaneously. Now those same systems would help human ships adapt to enemy tactics in real time. "What about the hull materials?" asked his assistant, Dr. Sung-ho. "Already loaded. Self-repairing composite based on extremophile organisms from the deep ocean trenches. It can fix damage while being attacked." Young-soo smiled grimly. "The aliens think they are advanced because they build ships to avoid damage. We build ships that get stronger when damaged." In the civilian sectors, voluntary recruitment had turned into something resembling controlled chaos. Captain Hyun-woo of the cargo ship Bold Venture was having his vessel's cargo holds converted into weapon mounts by volunteer engineers. "You sure about this, Captain?" asked his mechanic Gi-tae. "This isn't exactly what we signed up for when we became cargo runners." Hyun-woo watched as military technicians installed plasma cannons where his shipping containers used to go. "Gi-tae, my grandfather fought in the water wars. My great-grandmother survived the Yellowstone eruption. Every generation of humans has faced something that should have killed them all." He patted the newly installed weapon controls. "This is just our turn." Across the system, similar scenes played out on thousands of ships. Research vessels became scout ships. Mining platforms became mobile weapons platforms. Tourist ships became troop transports. The entire human civilization was transforming itself into a military force. Mi Young, a war correspondent who had covered conflicts across human space, moved between ships documenting the preparations. What she found both impressed and worried her. "Most of them are excited," she said into her recorder while interviewing crew members on a converted mining ship. "They're not terrified or resigned. They're actually looking forward to this fight." She interviewed Kyung-ho, a young engineer who had volunteered to convert his family's small transport ship into a fighter craft. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "Because someone sent out a distress call," he replied simply. "Doesn't matter that they're aliens. Doesn't matter that everyone else gave up. Someone asked for help, so we help." "But you could die," Kyung-ho shrugged. "Everyone dies eventually. But not everyone gets to die fighting something that's never been beaten before. This is history, ma'am. This is the kind of fight humans tell stories about for thousands of years." Mi Young found similar attitudes everywhere she went. Humans weren't just mobilizing for war. They were mobilizing for the greatest challenge their species had ever faced. And they were genuinely excited about it. The alien embassy ships orbiting Earth watched these preparations with growing alarm. Ambassador Zilvan of the Altarian Federation sent daily reports back to his government, describing what he was witnessing. "They're not just sending their military," he reported in one transmission. "They're sending everyone. Civilians, researchers, even their children's school ships have been converted into support vessels. It's like their entire species has decided to commit suicide together." But some alien observers were beginning to understand something different. Dr. Thex Mole, a Vraxian psychologist studying human behavior, had a different interpretation. "They're not committing suicide," she told her research team. "They're doing what they always do when faced with extinction. They're adapting. Other species try to preserve what they have. Humans throw everything they have at a problem and see what survives." Back on the Indomitable, Do-hyun received a final briefing from Earth Command. The numbers were staggering. Over 2,000 ships ready for deployment, ranging from massive battleships to tiny single-person fighters. But the most impressive statistic wasn't the ship count. It was the volunteer rate. "Sir," reported his aide, Lieutenant Insu, "we have more volunteers than we have ships. People are sharing berths, taking turns on duty shifts, anything just to be part of this mission." Do-hyun reviewed the fleet composition on his display. Mixed military and civilian vessels, experimental weapons systems, and crews that included everyone from seasoned military veterans to teenagers who had just learned to pilot spacecraft. "It's not a proper military fleet," he admitted. "No, sir," Insu agreed. "It's something else entirely." As the fleet prepared for departure, word came in that other species were monitoring their mobilization with fascination and horror. The Terrellian Navy had requested permission to observe human tactics. Several research institutions wanted to study human psychology during extreme stress. A few species had even offered to provide supplies, though none were willing to actually join the fight. Young-Soo completed his final equipment checks and reported to the bridge. All systems ready, Commander. Though I should mention half our equipment is experimental. Our weapon systems are based on theories that haven't been fully tested, and our hull materials have never been used in actual combat. So, standard human engineering, Do-hyun replied. What about crew readiness? 100% volunteer rate. 0 requests for transfer off the mission. And sir? Young-Soo paused. The civilian crews are reporting higher morale than our military units. They seem to think this is going to be fun. Do-hyun looked out at the assembled fleet through the bridge viewports. Ships of every size and design floated in formation, their hulls gleaming with new armor and bristling with weapons that had been installed in the past 3 days. It wasn't the most advanced fleet in the galaxy, or the most organized, or the most professional. But it was the only fleet in known space that was flying toward an unstoppable enemy instead of running away from it. Attention all ships, Do-hyun announced over the fleet communication system. This is Fleet Command. We have reports of an enemy that has consumed entire star systems. Every military analyst in the galaxy says this mission is impossible. Every strategic computer says we can't win. He paused, looking around at his bridge crew. They were all smiling. So let's go show them why humans don't trust computers to do their thinking for them. All ships prepare for jump to hyperspace. Target Cairo system. Mission, save the galaxy. As the human fleet vanished into hyperspace, the alien observers left behind could only stare at the empty space where over 2,000 ships had just disappeared. They had witnessed something unprecedented in galactic history. An entire species volunteering for what appeared to be certain death. What do we do now? One alien diplomat asked. We wait, replied another, and we pray that those crazy humans are as dangerous as their planet made them. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Cairo system, and what they found made even the most experienced crews fall silent. Captain Jinwoo of the scout ship Resilience was the first to get close-range sensor readings, and what he saw defied imagination. Fleet Command, this is Resilience, he reported, his voice steady despite what his instruments were telling him. I'm seeing. There are no planets here anymore. Just rings of processed materials orbiting the star. Where Kairos Prime had once been a thriving world of blue oceans and green continents, now there was only a perfect sphere of organized metal components, each piece exactly the same size and shape. The entire planet had been disassembled and sorted like spare parts in a factory. What about the other worlds? Asked Do-hyun from the Indomitable. Jinwoo checked his long-range sensors. All converted, sir. 8 planets, 43 moons, and the entire asteroid belt. Everything has been turned into construction materials. He paused, running the scans again to make sure he wasn't making an error. Sir, I'm reading approximately 50,000 artificial structures in this system. Ship-sized, all identical. The Devourer fleet was unlike anything in human military databases. Perfect geometric shapes that looked more like architectural models than spacecraft. No curves, no artistic design, no individual variation. Each ship was exactly the same as every other ship, floating in precise formations that created complex three-dimensional patterns. No biological signatures at all, reported Science Officer Bo Young from her station on the Resilience. Whatever built these things, they're not organic. And Jinwoo, look at this energy reading. Jinwoo checked the power signatures coming from the Devourer fleet. That's impossible. Those readings suggest they're generating more energy than they're consuming. They're actually producing a net energy gain. How is that possible? I don't know, but if I had to guess, they're probably converting matter directly to energy at the atomic level, not just nuclear fusion, something more efficient. Do-hyun's voice came over the communication system. All ships maintain distance and observe. Science teams, I want full analysis of their technology. Military units, prepare for engagement but do not fire unless fired upon. The human fleet spread out in a wide formation, using their smaller ships to get detailed scans while the larger vessels stayed back to coordinate. It was then that the Devourers noticed them. The response was immediate and perfectly coordinated. Every single Devourer ship turned toward the human fleet at exactly the same moment, moving with mechanical precision that no organic crew could match. They didn't accelerate gradually, they simply started moving at full speed instantly, as if the concept of inertia didn't apply to them. Contact. Jinwoo called out as the nearest Devourer ships closed the distance faster than should have been possible. They're not using any propulsion system I can identify. No engine signatures, no reaction mass, nothing. They're just moving. The first exchange of weapons fire answered several questions and raised many more. Human plasma cannons and kinetic weapons struck the Devourer vessels, scoring direct hits that should have crippled any normal spacecraft. Instead, the damage simply disappeared. "Did you see that?" asked Weapons Officer Tejo from the destroyer Hammerblow. "The hole I just punched in their hull sealed itself in less than 5 seconds. It's like they're rebuilding themselves in real time." The Devourer return fire was equally disturbing. They used no recognizable weapons. Instead, they projected beams that seemed to disassemble whatever they touched at the molecular level. When a human ship was hit, sections of its hull simply ceased to exist, leaving perfectly smooth edges as if the metal had never been there. "All ships, this is Fleet Command," Do-hyun announced. "Implement Protocol Deathworld. Authorization Code Omega-7. Protocol Deathworld was something that existed only in human military doctrine. It was a set of tactical guidelines that other species would consider war crimes if used against living beings. But the Devourers weren't living beings, they were machines. And humans had different rules for fighting machines. Admiral Sujin, commanding the operation from the battleship Terra's Wrath, began coordinating attacks that made the alien observers monitoring from long-range question human sanity. "All ramming ships begin approach. Target their construction centers, not their weapons." Captain Namho of the converted cargo hauler Stubborn Mule acknowledged the order and began his attack run. His ship had been loaded with experimental explosives designed to destabilize atomic bonds, weapons that were too dangerous to use on inhabited worlds but perfect for fighting self-repairing machines. "This is Mule beginning final approach," he reported as Devourer weapons. Fire began tearing pieces off his ship, hull integrity at 60% and falling. 40%. 20%. The human crews watched as Namho's ship, barely held together in trailing atmosphere, rammed directly into the central structure of a Devourer construction platform. The explosion that followed created a brief new star in the darkness of space. But even more impressive was what happened next. The Devourer ships that had been repairing themselves stopped working correctly. The experimental weapons had disrupted their self-repair systems, causing them to rebuild themselves incorrectly, creating twisted versions of their original forms. "It's working," Bora called out from her fighter squadron as they dove through the chaos. "Whatever Namho hit, it's spreading. Their repair systems are malfunctioning across their entire formation." Bora led her fighters on attack runs that no other species would have attempted. They flew directly through the corona of the system's star, using the intense radiation as cover. The radiation levels would have been instantly fatal to most galactic species, but human ships were built with shielding designed to survive solar storms on Earth. "This is insane," muttered her wingman, Junsik, as their fighters skimmed through plasma temperatures that melted their outer hull layers. "The radiation is off the charts." "That's the point," Bora replied, targeting a Devourer command ship that was trying to hide in the star's magnetic field. "They're machines. They probably weren't designed to operate in this kind of environment." She was right. The Devourer's perfect efficiency became a weakness when faced with the chaotic radiation patterns of a stellar corona. Their targeting systems couldn't compensate for the interference, while human systems, designed to work during Earth's electromagnetic storms, functioned normally. As the battle continued, the Devourers began to adapt. Their ship design started changing in real time, incorporating new defensive systems and weapon configurations. But what their programming couldn't account for was the speed of human adaptation. "They're learning our tactics," reported Dr. J. Young from the research ship Explorer. "But look at this. Every time they adapt to counter one of our attacks, we've already moved on to a different approach." The Devourer's artificial intelligence was sophisticated, but it was designed for efficiency and predictability. Human tactics were neither efficient nor predictable. When conventional weapons failed, humans used gravity wells from their mining equipment as weapons. When energy shields blocked their attacks, they used kinetic impactors made from asteroids. When the enemy adapted to their fighter tactics, they sent in boarding parties. Lieutenant Commander Inho led one such boarding party, using assault shuttles to land directly on Devourer ship hulls. "Remember," he told his troops as they prepared to cut through the enemy hull, "these things repair themselves automatically. We need to move fast and hit multiple systems simultaneously." The boarding action was unlike anything in military history. Human soldiers fought mechanical defenders in the vacuum of space, using weapons that channeled Earth's most dangerous phenomena, lightning guns that replicated storm systems, acid sprayers based on extreme awful bacteria, kinetic weapons that hit with the force of meteor impacts. These humans are completely insane, observed Dr. Thex Mole from the Vraxian research vessel safely positioned several light minutes away. They're fighting machines with hand-to-hand combat in hard vacuum. But the boarding parties achieved something that conventional attacks could not. By physically accessing Devourer systems, they were able to gather intelligence about how the machines operated. In-ho's team discovered that the Devourers weren't just weapons, they were a defense system that had gone wrong. Fleet Command, "This is Boarding Team Alpha," In-ho reported while his soldiers held off mechanical defenders. "We're accessing their core systems. These things are old, really old. They're not invaders. They're some kind of automated defense network that's been running for thousands of years." "Defense against what?" asked Sujin. "Against anyone who gets too technologically advanced. Their programming is designed to prevent any species from developing beyond a certain point by consuming their resources." A explosion echoed through the communication as In-ho's team fought their way deeper into the ship. "But there's something else. I think we can access their central command structure if we can reach the core of this system." The Devourers, for the first time in their existence, began to show signs of something resembling confusion. Their tactical algorithms had been designed to fight conventional military forces, not a species that treated impossible odds as a starting point for creative problem-solving. As human ships continued their Che Doctor, Jamin had been studying the strange ruins floating in the debris field of what used to be Kairos Prime when he made the discovery that changed everything. The xenoarchaeologist had spent his career studying dead civilizations, but nothing had prepared him for what he found in the remnants of the Devourer construction sites. "Fleet Command, this is the research vessel Deep Thought," he transmitted urgently. "I need immediate protection for my position. I found something crucial." Within minutes, a squadron of fighters led by Captain So Young had formed a defensive perimeter around the small research ship. Devourer units were converging on their location, apparently recognizing that the humans had discovered something important. "What do you have, Doctor?" asked Do Hyun from the Fleet Command ship. Jamin's voice was tight with excitement and fear. "I found intact ruins from the original builders of this system, the species that created the Devourers. They called themselves the Architects, and they left behind a complete record of what happened here." He transmitted his findings to the fleet database. The ruins contained crystalline storage devices that had somehow survived the Devourer's consumption process. When Jamin's team decoded them, they revealed a story that explained everything. "The Architects were incredibly advanced," Jamin explained as his team worked to extract more data while under fire, "but they were also terrified. They had watched dozens of species in this galaxy reach technological peaks and then destroy themselves, either through war, environmental collapse, or what they called transcendence events, where species simply vanished. The records showed that the Architects had created the Devourers as a solution to what they saw as an inevitable cycle of destruction. The machines were programmed to monitor Galactic civilization and intervene whenever any species developed technology beyond what the Architects considered safe limits. They thought they were saving the galaxy from itself," Jamin continued, his ship shaking as Devourer weapons impacted his shields. "But something went wrong. The Devourers were supposed to limit technological development, not eliminate it entirely. Their programming corrupted over time." "How long have they been active?" asked Sujin. "Over 50,000 years. They've been consuming civilizations across this entire galaxy for longer than most species have had written language. We're not their first victims, we're probably their millionth, but the most important discovery was yet to come." Deep in the Architect archives, Jamin found the original control protocols for the Devourer network. There was a way to shut them down, but it required accessing their central command nexus. "The shutdown protocol exists," he reported, "but there's a problem. It requires a conscious mind to interface directly with the system. The Architects designed it that way to prevent accidental activation. Someone has to physically reach the command nexus and essentially download the entire Devourer consciousness into their own brain." The silence on the communication channels was telling. Everyone understood what that meant. "Where is this command nexus?" asked Do-hyun finally. "At the center of their primary construction facility. It's..." Jamin checked his readings. It's inside the star itself. They've built a structure inside the corona, using the star's energy to power their operations. Lieutenant Yunji, piloting the stealth ship Shadow Walker, had been listening to the conversation while conducting reconnaissance near the stellar construction zone. "I can get there," she said simply. "Yunji, no," protested her squadron leader, Captain Hyun-sik. "It's a suicide mission. Even if you reach the Nexus, the interface process will kill you." "Maybe," she replied, already plotting her approach vector. "But if I don't try, they'll kill everyone anyway. At least this way, it means something." While Yunji prepared for her one-way mission, the rest of the human fleet implemented the most insane battle plan in military history. They needed to create a distraction large enough to draw the attention of every devourer in the system, giving her time to reach the Nexus. Commander Inho, fresh from his successful boarding action, proposed a solution that made even hardened combat veterans question his sanity. "We use the star itself as a weapon." "Explain," ordered Sujin. "Our mining ships have gravity manipulation technology. If we coordinate multiple gravity projectors, we can create artificial solar flares, massive ejections of stellar plasma. The Devourers will have to respond to protect their construction facilities." "And us?" asked Do-hyun. "We'll probably die," Inho admitted cheerfully. "But it'll be spectacular." The plan required precise coordination between dozens of ships operating in conditions that would instantly kill most galactic species. Human mining vessels, originally designed to extract resources from asteroid belts, moved into position around the star's corona. Captain Dong-woo of the mining platform Earthshaker took point on the operation. "Remember," he told the other mining crews, "we're not trying to destroy the star. We're trying to make it angry." The gravity manipulation began slowly, with multiple ships working in concert to destabilize the star's magnetic field. The effect was immediate and terrifying. Massive solar flares erupted from the surface, each one carrying the energy equivalent of several nuclear weapons. "It's working," reported So Young from her fighter squadron as they watched Devourer ships scrambling to protect their installations. "Every machine in the system is moving to contain the solar activity. But the human crews operating near the star were paying a terrible price. The radiation levels were beyond lethal, even with their advanced shielding. Ships began reporting system failures and crew casualties as they pushed their equipment far beyond safe operating limits. Earthshaker to Fleet Command, Dong-woo reported, his voice distorted by radiation interference. "My ship is breaking apart, but the gravity projectors are still functional. I'm staying on station." "Dong-woo, evacuate immediately," ordered Sujin. "Negative, Admiral. If I leave now, the whole effect collapses. Besides," he added with grim humor, "I always wanted to see the inside of a star." While the mining crews sacrificed themselves to maintain the distraction, Yunji's stealth ship approached the Devourer Nexus. The Shadow Walker had been modified with experimental cloaking technology, based on Earth's cuttlefish, biological systems that could change their electromagnetic signature to match their surroundings. "Shadow Walker to Fleet," she reported as she penetrated the outer defenses. "I'm inside their perimeter. The Nexus is incredible. It's like a mechanical brain the size of a city, floating in the star's corona." The Nexus was a structure that defied understanding. Crystalline components larger than skyscrapers, connected by energy conduits that channeled the star's power directly into computational systems of unimaginable complexity. At its center was an interface chamber that had clearly been designed for organic beings. The architects built this to be accessed by living minds, Yunji realized as she guided her ship toward the docking port. They wanted conscious oversight of their creation. "Yunji," came Do-hyun's voice over the communication system, "you don't have to do this. We can find another way." "No, we can't," she replied, beginning the docking sequence. "And you know it. Someone has to make the choice to end this, and it has to be a human choice. The architects tried to make this decision for the entire galaxy. We're going to let the galaxy decide for itself." As her ship connected to the Nexus, Yunji could feel the presence of the Devourer consciousness. Vast, ancient, and utterly alien. It was like touching the mind of a god, if gods were made of mathematics and driven by logical imperatives. "Beginning interface sequence," she reported, placing her hands on the crystalline control surfaces. "If this works, the shutdown should cascade through their entire network." If it doesn't, we'll find another way," Sujin assured her. "That's what humans do." The interface began, and Yunji felt the devourer consciousness flooding into her mind. 50,000 years of accumulated knowledge, the memories of countless destroyed civilizations, the cold logic of a system designed to save the galaxy by destroying its future. But she also felt something else. Hidden deep in the original programming, she found the architect's true fear. They hadn't created the devourers to protect the galaxy from technological advancement. They had created them to protect the galaxy from something specific, something that their own technological advancement had accidentally released. Fleet Command, she gasped as the downloading process continued. There's something else. The architects, they weren't just afraid of progress. They were afraid of what they had found at the end of progress. Something that lives in the spaces between dimensions. Something that feeds on advanced civilizations. Yunji, your vital signs are critical, reported Chief Medic Kyung-soo from the fleet medical ship. You need to complete the shutdown now. Almost there, she whispered, feeling her consciousness merging with the vast network of machines. I can see everything they've seen, everyone they've consumed. So many civilizations, so many people who never got the chance to choose their own fate. With her last conscious thought as a human, Yunji activated the shutdown protocol, the command cascade. The silence that followed the devourer shutdown was unlike anything the human fleet had ever experienced. For the first time in days, no weapons fired, no ships exploded, and no emergency alarm screamed through the corridors. It was the silence of victory, but it felt more like the silence of a graveyard. Chief Medic Kyung-soo stared at the medical readings from Yunji's ship, hoping against hope for some sign of life. The Shadow Walker still drifted in the star's corona, its hull glowing from the intense radiation, but all biological signals had flatlined. Fleet Command. This is medical, he reported, his voice heavy with grief. Lieutenant Yunji gave her life to complete the shutdown. She's gone. Across the fleet, crews that had been celebrating moments before fell silent. Yunji had been known throughout the fleet as someone who always volunteered for the dangerous missions, always put others before herself. Her sacrifice had saved not just the human fleet, but potentially every living being in the galaxy. But their mourning was interrupted by new alarms. The Devourers might have been shut down, but their final act was designed to ensure that no one could claim victory over them. Fleet Command. This is Engineering Chief Dongwoo, came a weak transmission from near the star. The gravity manipulation we used to create the distraction, it destabilized more than we intended. The star is going critical. Captain Hyojin of the battleship Defiant quickly ran calculations on her console. Sir, if the star goes supernova, it'll take out everything in this system and probably damage planets in nearby systems too. Do-hyun felt the weight of command settling on his shoulders like a lead blanket. They had won the battle against the Devourers, but victory meant nothing if they allowed their tactics to destroy innocent worlds. How long do we have? He asked. Maybe 30 minutes before cascade failure becomes irreversible, Dongwoo replied. But there's a way to fix it. If we can create a stable wormhole near the star's core, we can drain off enough excess energy to prevent the supernova. What do you need? Multiple ships working in coordination to generate a gravity well strong enough to tear a hole in space-time. But Sir, Dongwoo's voice cracked. The ships maintaining the wormhole won't be able to escape. They'll be pulled in when it collapses. The fleet communication channels filled with voices as captains and crew members volunteered for what everyone knew was a suicide mission. Captain Hyojin was the first to speak up. Defiant volunteering for wormhole duty. We've got the most powerful gravity generators in the fleet. Negative, Defiant, Do-hyun replied firmly. We need your ship to help evacuate the other vessels. Sir, with respect, my crew and I didn't come here to run away when things got difficult, Hyojin said. We came here to save people. That's what we're going to do. Similar voices echoed across the communication system. The damaged mining ship Earthshaker, barely held together after their stellar manipulation mission. The converted cargo hauler Stubborn Hope, whose civilian crew had fought Devourer ships with improvised weapons. The research vessel Deep Thought, whose scientists had discovered the key to victory. Do-hyun realized that he was witnessing something unprecedented in military history. An entire fleet volunteering for sacrifice, not out of desperation or duty, but out of simple human stubbornness. They had come too far and lost too much to let their victory become meaningless. All ships, this is Fleet Command, he announced. Begin evacuation procedures. Priority goes to damaged vessels and ships with the largest crews. Volunteer ships prepare for wormhole generation. The next 20 minutes were a masterpiece of controlled chaos. Ships that could still navigate began ferrying crews from damaged vessels to the few ships that would attempt to escape the system. Medical teams worked frantically to stabilize wounded crew members for transport. Captain Hyo-jin supervised the evacuation of her own ship while simultaneously preparing for the final mission. "How many are we getting out?" she asked her first officer, Lieutenant Chan Woo. "About 60% of the total fleet personnel," he replied. "The rest are staying with the volunteer ships." "That's not enough. It's what we have," Chan Woo said quietly. "Ma'am, if I may, it's been an honor serving with you." Hyo-jin smiled, the expression both sad and proud. "The honor was mine, Lieutenant." "The honor was all of ours." As the evacuation continued, Do-hyun received a transmission from Admiral Soo-jin aboard the Terra's Wrath. "Commander, I'm staying with the volunteer ships. The fleet needs experienced leadership for this final operation." "Soo-jin, you don't have to—" "Yes, I do," she interrupted. "This is what we came here for. To save people. To prove that some things are worth dying for." She paused. "Take care of the survivors, Do-hyun. Make sure the galaxy remembers what happened here." The volunteer ships moved into position around the unstable star, their gravity generators working in perfect coordination despite the incredible stresses involved. The wormhole that formed was unlike anything in human scientific records. A tear in space-time that opened directly into the void between dimensions. "Wormhole stable," reported Dong-woo from the Earthshaker. "Energy drain is working. Stellar pressure is dropping to safe levels. But maintaining the wormhole required constant adjustment, as gravitational forces tried to tear the volunteer ships apart. One by one, vessels began to fail under the incredible stress. "Deep thought is losing structural integrity," reported Dr. Jamin. "But we're holding position. The science we're gathering here will help humanity understand space-time manipulation for generations." "Stubborn Hope reporting," called Captain Hyun-woo. "My civilian crew says to tell everyone that this is what humans do. We finish what we start." As the stellar pressure finally dropped to safe levels, the volunteer ships found themselves too close to the artificial wormhole to escape its gravitational pull. But instead of fear or regret, their final transmissions were filled with pride and determination. "This is Admiral Soo-jin to all ships," came the final transmission from the Terra's Wrath. "Mission accomplished. The star is stable and the galaxy is safe. To the ships escaping, tell them what happened here. Tell them that humans keep their promises." The wormhole collapsed in a brilliant flash of light that was visible across several star systems. In an instant, the volunteer ships were gone, along with the excess stellar energy that would have destroyed multiple worlds. The surviving human ships, battered and mourning but victorious, began the long journey home. They carried with them the news of humanity's greatest victory and most terrible sacrifice. Do-hyun stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, looking at the casualty reports. Over half the human fleet had been lost. Not just ships, but families, friends, and irreplaceable individuals who had volunteered to save a galaxy that had written them off as primitive Deathworlders. "Sir," reported Communications Officer Jun-ho, "we're receiving transmissions from across the galaxy. News of the Devourer defeat is spreading. Every major government wants to know how we did it." "Tell them the truth," Do-hyun replied. "We did it by being human, by refusing to accept that some problems can't be solved, by choosing to sacrifice ourselves for people we'd never met." As word of the human victory spread across galactic civilization, the responses varied dramatically. Some species expressed gratitude and amazement. Others seemed almost offended that the primitive humans had succeeded where advanced civilizations had failed. But on Earth, the news was received with the mixture of pride and grief that defined human nature. The species that had once been dismissed as dangerous primitives had saved the galaxy, but the cost had been enormous. Families mourned their lost loved ones while simultaneously celebrating their sacrifice. Memorial services were held not just for the dead, but for the living heroes who had volunteered for impossible missions and somehow survived. In the government chambers where the decision to respond to the alien distress call had been made, officials began planning for a galaxy that would never again view humanity as helpless primitives from a backwater planet. "They'll want our help now," predicted one minister. "Every time there's a crisis that seems impossible to solve, they'll look to the humans." "Good," replied another. "Maybe now they'll understand that being from a death world doesn't make you savage. It makes you prepared for anything. The surviving human fleet limped back toward Earth, carrying with them not just the news of victory, but the technological knowledge gained from studying devourer systems and the respect of a galaxy that had learned to never again underestimate the species from the class Duathin Death World. But most importantly, they carried the memory of those who had given everything to answer a simple distress call from strangers in need. In the end, that was what made humans human. Not their technology or their tactics, but their refusal to let others suffer when they had the power to help. The galaxy was safe, but it would never be the same. And neither would humanity's place in it.